Greetings. Nat Nye and Sister Stella here.
Sister Stella in the house.
We hope you're all well. We're just going to run that track same way and then come true.
Rhythm and vibes, expressing what I'm feeling inside. Cause I'm young, black and aggressive's what they're thinking I'm like. Overcome, I know I'm blessed, they can think what they like. Like the one from in the Matrix, got a different design. Spreading love throughout the system, cause it's built to divide. And it's real, yeah, that's all I can say. Trying to change the lives of others in a positive way. So I just pray for guidance on my journey as I walk in the rain. Soon as I get back on my feet, it's like I'm falling again. But that's life, and I ride in the waves. Walking blind in the maze, but I'm finding my way. Know that our time is today.
We are rays of the sun engaging with one. A few degrading, our young they prey on the lust. I walk through the dark seeking peace and one love. I open my heart to the beat of the drum. The frequency sets me free, I'm a spiritual son. The energy reflects in me, the trinity of the one. A heathen tongue sings a song from a mystical plane. I'm transcending the wrongs, we have imperial aims. Feel my spiritual change to lineal planes. Stepping out my physical maze where minerals drain. I and I continually reigns, the history slain. I and I know victory's placed in divinity's name. Who's winning this race? They can't see into my soul, I'm left connecting the dots. I'm in a city on the road, remembering what's lost. I don't need riches or gold to progress with my gods. I feel the mystics when shown to the blessed and the lost.
I'm looking up to the sky. At the same time I'm watching cars drive by. Monetary struggles very hard in life. Some of them are living. At the same time I'm watching.
We in the house today, and we're going to talk about, actually, who are we?
Okay, so my name is Stella, Sister Stella. I am a poet, a creative being. I run also a black study group, very interested in my roots and interested in opening the eyes of all my fellow black brothers and sisters into knowing their true history, because it is vital for our progress as a people. So I run a black study group, which you can add us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all those social media, and they call it Black Twitter, black social media these days, because it's really helping the movement to come along strong. So that's Black Study Group there. Also involved in a Voyage to Motherland. That's Voyage to Motherland. That's our project, our mission that both me and Nat Nye are a part of. It's a big mission. We're trying to dispel the myths and get rid of all the negativity that surrounds our continent, our homeland, our motherland, so that we can, as a diaspora, be a big part of bringing progress to our people.
And I am Nat Nye, spoken word, meta-scientist, creative, activist, and I'm also a part of the Voyage to Motherland project, which we believe is a revolutionary step in bringing and connecting the African diaspora back to Africa. So it's a Pan-African ideal that we're running with.
That's right. And the way we're going to do that is by doing a vlog, which is, the video logs, and a blog, which is a write-up. And this will be highlighting all the beautiful aspects there are in Africa, all the beauty that we don't really get to see with our one-sided media here in the UK and globally, internationally. We only get to see all the negative things, not really the richness and the beauty, and therefore a lot of the diaspora are not connected with Africa. So what we want to do, us two beings here, we found our purpose, one of our purpose, through our creativity and our poetry and all those things there. We really want to just dispel the myths and attract all of the diaspora back to the motherland. Okay, so if you're interested in supporting that movement, all you have to do is go online to www.voyagetomotherland.wix.com /voyage. The details are on our Facebook. You can find all the details out there. And you can support us financially, or you can support us by spreading the word, let people know about what we're trying to do so we can create this movement. We really feel that it's important. It's our life's calling.
Yeah, and any businesses out there, we're looking for sponsorship, and we're looking to connect. So, yeah, holler at us. We're looking to be on the ground from August in Africa, in Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, the Gambia, and Sierra Leone, and visiting places of aesthetic beauty and ancient sites. That's
right. We'll also be interviewing people that are progressively doing big things, the young and old, the educators, the charities out there that are doing really big things. There are lots of things that you can do to support the growing of the African nation.
Yeah. So, basically what we want to talk about today is the SHIELD operation that has been taking place, that has started, the initiative was put ahead in January of this year, and we'll go into that later. We've got a couple of expert, knowledgeable brothers that can give us real insight into how to deal with these new legislations that are being put in place, or these new pilot missions into place. You may know them well, we know them, and they're very inspirational brothers by the name of Brother Twilight and Brother Extra. And we also want to divulge into our experience of African Liberation Day, which we went to this weekend gone.
That's right. So those two very important subjects to us, because obviously fresh in our memories, we were called to a public meeting regarding Project SHIELD. So we've got two great talkers, as Nat Nye has just mentioned, who are going to just break down for us exactly what this project means to specifically our young black girls and boys, so-called gang members, and how it's going to affect our communities. Very important that you tune in. If you have any opinions on the both subjects that we're going to be talking about, you can call in. The telephone numbers are
0753 800 5634 or 0798 385 2952, or you can text us on 0757 2222 156.
That's right. Okay, so let's talk about African Liberation Day. African Liberation Day, what does that mean? What does it mean? Such a fantastic phrase. What does it mean to you, Nat Nye?
Well, African Liberation Day to me is iconic. It's a token. You know, I don't believe Africa is actually liberated, nor do I believe any African on the planet is liberated, despite the monetary wealth that some may have, right?
I understand that. I mean, this is why the event is so important, and that's why I really wanted to talk on it today, because I want to share my experience as someone who, unfortunately, didn't really know anything to do with African Liberation Day before, last week. I heard Brother Shakara of the Al-Kabbalah Revivalist movement talking about it on Galaxyafiwe, actually. And I did a bit more research into the history of it, and, you know, opened my eyes up to a whole new subject that I feel like I should have known by, you know, I should have known this being a 5-year-old Nigerian-born child, you know. So it's very important that we talk about this today.
So what was your thoughts before? What was your thoughts before?
Before that point?
Yes.
You know, I think learning more and more about being a Pan-Africanist, I feel I've naturally been that growing up, you know, because I'm pro-black, I'm pro-Africa, I'm pro, you know, all the things that we're made up of. But having the knowledge of all the wording around it, and, you know, the really deep research that goes into how to actually liberate Africa and Africans is very important. It's vital to our history. And so my experience of just learning all these things now in this new chapter of my life I feel it's very necessary for me to try and be a bridge in the gap that I see between the Pan-Africanist world and the mainstream. And I'm sure some people listening might understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because...
So what do you think the mainstream view of African Liberation Day or Pan-Africanism is?
I'm not really sure that the mainstream would really know what African Liberation Day is. I wouldn't, for example, as a Nigerian, as I said, I feel that day should be very important, more than just having Nigerian Independence Day and all of those things. African Liberation Day should be very important. It should have been something that we celebrated ongoing growing up, but it wasn't. It wasn't at all.
And why is that, do you believe?
Because I think unfortunately it's not seen as important. It's not really viewed as important. I mean, there could be many reasons for this. Reading into what Pan-Africanism is, so as we know, the Honourable Marcus Garvey said, "A people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots," and he is the father of Pan-Africanism. But knowing what it actually is makes me see that, it is vital that every African family, and I'm talking about the diaspora as well, should be celebrating this day.
Right, I completely agree. As Africans, to identify ourselves as Africans will bring us a greater understanding of why we should appreciate African Liberation Day. If the problem is that we separate ourselves and we are restricted to nations, I believe, from what I see. If you're from the Caribbean, you're restricted to that area. That's how you're grown up. That's how you're taught. The education systems are dominated by Western values, Western beliefs. And we are all brought up, whether it is on the continent or elsewhere, with the ideologies of a Western-based concepts. So when it comes to connecting back to the continent, there's a difficulty there.
There's a restriction because people cannot view themselves as African if they are not directly from a country in Africa. So that's the problem. That is the problem. So the whole Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism, okay, that's the official way of looking at it, okay?
By Kwame Nkrumah, I believe.
That's correct. So just quick write-up here that I picked up from African Liberation Day. I went on Saturday after a family event, ventured down there, which was in Tottenham, and we caught the last section of the occasion, the event, and it was great. I mean, it was really amazing. Sister Esther Stanford was there. She gave a keynote speech at the end, which was very inspiring to me. It changed something in me. When some people talk and something hits something in your heart. That's what I had that moment there when I was listening to what she was talking about, because she was talking about the genocide that is ongoing, happening to our people, and just the raw truth of that. The genocide, breaking down what genocide is, and she also talked about the manganese, which is the genocide. It's I believe it's a word to describe that. I'll get the meaning for you in a minute.
Okay.
So,
what else did Esther Sanford say that really touched you?
So she was just talking about the many different aspects of what we need to work on, and the main key thing to me was about how we can, as a people, work together and get things done. So it's just action now. And coming into this whole movement at a late date in my life, I was very excited when I saw things online, like certain groups that are doing things, making trying to make legislative changes. And then I'm learning about divisions and all of this kind of stuff that's been going on for years. And it explains, all of the reasons why we haven't at this stage finally, got our stuff together, So it was, action. She was talking about the action and the kind of unity between all these different organizations, putting aside any differences. Like, for me, it's just put any ego out of the window, out of the door. This is priority. This is genocide going on now. We need to just get on with it, roll our sleeves up, and all the different organizations, if we could just under one umbrella be working. So each of these groups that are focused on different aspects of the issues that we face as a black people, but we're all under one umbrella and we're walking towards that same, that same drumbeat. We're all on the same page. That's what we need,
Yeah, I completely agree. My opinion on the matter is that although we are connected by race and there's an overall goal that we all share, there are finite differences, albeit small. They are fundamental. But what is more important is the fact that we have altered views on particulars, more important than our general mission, which is to stop our genocide. And by allowing these divisions to fester or continue, are we actually falling into the hands of the Willie Lynch syndrome? That is my question. So it is about overriding those things, and it's got to be principle. It's got to be principle over emotions. We got to care more about what we're doing rather than who's doing it or who's saying it. It's what is said, how it's going to happen.
That's
tangibles.
Right. It's the tangibles. It's the action. So, like you said, whoever, we're not trying to. It's not about being the Malcolm X or being the Marcus Garvey. It's not that. It's the actual realization of the dream, So with the African Liberation Day event, I really enjoyed it, and I'm just hoping that next year it's bigger, and the year after that it's even more massive, where more people are coming down and even in their homes and from wherever they're celebrating African Liberation Day all together. This is what I hope for. And I'll just do a quick read from a leaflet I picked up on the occasion, which was done by I'm just going to read it out to you, the All African People's Revolution Party, who organised the event alongside a few other organisations, including Ajamu and a couple of others. So on 15th of April 1958, in the city of Accra, Ghana, African leaders and political activists gathered at the first conference of independent African states. It was attended by representatives of the governments of Ethiopia, Ghana, Liberia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, and the United Arab Republic, which was the Federation of Egypt and Syria, and representatives of the National Liberation Front, FLN, of Algeria, and the Union of Cameroonian Peoples, UPC. This conference was significant in that it represented the first Pan-African conference held on African soil. It was also significant in that it represented the collective expression of African people's disgust with the system of colonialism and imperialism, which brought so much suffering to the African people. Further, it represented the collective will see the system of white rule permanently done away with. So this conference gave sharp clarity and definition to Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. The conference was well laid the foundation and the strategy for further intensification and coordination of the next stage of the African revolution for the liberation of the rest of Africa, an eventual and complete unification. The conference called for the founding of African Freedom Day, a day to mark each year the onward progress of the liberation movement and to symbolize the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. 5 years later, after the first conference of independent African states in the city of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, another historical meeting occurred. On the 25th of May, that's right, the 25th of May, people, 1963, leaders of 32 independent African states met to form the Organization of African Unity, OAU. By then, more than 2/3 of the continent had achieved independence from colonial rule. And at this historic meeting, the date of Africa Freedom Day was changed from April 15th to May 25th. And Africa Freedom Day was declared Africa Liberation Day, ALD. So that was the May 25th date. So, you know, that date is very important, very important. It's very significant to our black history, and it is not taught in schools. It is never going to be taught in schools, you know, sadly.
So it's our responsibility to spread the word, really and truly, and make people know about our key days, like African Liberation Day. We all need to get liberated. There's an illusion currently that we have got independence.
That's right.
And African liberation is an announcement, it's a declaration that this is what we intend. It's not what we have yet, but it's what we intend. And by celebrating that day, we can make sure that it's in the forefront of our heads on a daily basis, so we can bring that into action, into reality.
Into fruition, that's right. And, you know, information is everywhere. We have black Twitter, black social media. It's really aiding the transformation of how young black view themselves as a people. You know, it really is. But, you know, the progress is always counteracted by the enemy. You know, you always have the mainstream media fighting and combating against, you know, when young people actually self-actualization is happening, when they're actually realizing who they are, studying their history, then you have the mainstream fighting that with all the likes of all this negative media, negative you know, videos and music, and the arts are used as entertainment only and not as education, not as educational tools. And what they're doing is infiltrating, you know, and they're taking away all that knowledge and all that sense of self that you're learning from, you know, this new wave of black social media, which is really empowering. You know, I would urge, you know, people to go out, go on Google. Google is our friend in a way, actually. Sometimes
when they're not spying on us.
When they're not. But it's our friend, so Google and find out your history. Go on, you know, there's Atlantic Black Star, which is a great website for knowledge.
Atlanta Black Star.
Atlanta Black Star. There's Black Study Group. We put all the information we do on our Facebook page. There's Black History Studies, who do workshops, who do a whole range of things that really help empower our communities in terms of knowledge and sense of self and education.
Yeah, shout out to Black History Studies. They're amazing.
Shout out to sister Charmaine Simpson. She just had a baby.
And Mr. Mark Simpson as well.
So, yeah, there's loads of things out there. Also want to shout out the AAPRP, the AJUMA, Akabalan Revivalist Movement, and Nation of Islam, and all the Pan-African groups and organizations putting in the hard work. They've been doing this for many, 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 many years. And, you know, they are really doing their bit to make the difference for our people.
Yeah, they're the ones that are keeping the fire burning. And big up, of course, Galaxyafiwe, that keep the fire burning also. Without any of these elements that we've just mentioned, without any of these people that are making these things happen, then we wouldn't stand a chance.
That's right. And echoing the brother Astari from AAPRP, there are many organizations actively fighting for the liberty of our people. So join them. You know, there's a lot of times where I would have been at home and talking to my family relatives about all the issues we're facing as a black people. I would have been thinking, you know, really, it's so sad, and, you know, what can we do to change this? But there are organizations out there that I didn't know, I didn't have access to. But they are out there. So go online, look them up for yourself. You know, study. That is the key to the change that we will see. And then take action. Go out to events. You know, go out this weekend on Saturday.
There is Our Parents and Ancestors Day on Saturday, the 6th of June, which starts from 2 p.m. till 11 p.m. at Leander Community Centre, Ship Street, which is in London, SE8 4 Delta House. It's off the Vanguard Street. We'll tell you a bit about that later. So, the African Liberation Day. Well, there was a point that you did raise earlier, Stella, that I wanted to elaborate on. we view, and we're taught this, we're taught that arts is just entertainment. However, it is not. It's a form of propaganda and mind control. It's a form of education. It's interconnected with the curriculum and the education system. So, like what we was talking about last week in terms of how TV, movies can influence minds. We've got a whole generation of people, of young people, right, not even just young people, right up into I'd say age 40, those who grew up in the 80s and 90s, we've got generations upon generations who are influenced by hip-hop in the way we dress, act, and how we associate ourselves of what it means to be black.
That's right.
Which is a different way to what our parents' generation, those who grew up in the 60s and 70s and even before them, how they view what it means to be black.
That's right. I mean, let's speak specifically about UK, because there was a time where Malcolm X was saying this about, you know, certain ways that people behaving, and even Marcus Garvey was, you know, trying to educate his people about the ways that they be behaving that he saw as detrimental to our people. But for our time, our generation, the 80s and 90s, as you mentioned, hip hop has been used as a tool. I remember seeing a clip by, I think it's Wise Intelligent, he's a rapper, and he was saying in a conference that how many times he was approached to dumb down his music, his the knowledge that he was been putting in his raps, dumb it down. He was being approached by many top record labels to do that, and he said no, because, you know, he wanted to speak truth and he wanted to educate his people. But what he was trying to show was that after the era of the 70s, it was, I think, or just before the era of the 70s, he was showing that the major corporations, and the music industry is a major corporation if you don't know, were actively trying to dumb our people down by putting all the negative sort of media out there to counteract all the positive political music that was out there.
Yeah, it was the political movements that was arising around the 60s and 70s that had to be, in J. Edgar Hoover's words, be neutralized.
That's right. And
their mediums of doing that is not only political in terms of, you know, murdering our leaders and locking them up and making them stay in prison in solitary confinement for 40 to 50 years and some insane things like that, abuse that they have to go through. It's also through, like I say, through the arts, through the mainstream media, the television, and, you know, in a way, controlling mind. So it started off with the black exploitation movies, which, you know, we feel good when we get little trinkets, and it's understandable why. You want to see yourself on TV, you want to see yourself represented, right? But how are you being represented? Now, hip-hop, they thought it was just going to be a phase. They didn't know that hip-hop... I mean, we read something the other day about scientists doing... All sorts of scientists will be going into the phenomenon of hip-hop. And they didn't expect it to be cyclical, for it to override generations and influence music more than any other genre has.
Yeah,
this is what the
basically
scientists have actually done. They've compared it to other genres,
Beatles,
including the Beatles. How are you going to compare the Beatles to a whole genre? But regardless of that, hip-hop is the most influential, according to these scientists, from the likes of, I think it was Queen Mary's University and UCL. Here, hip-hop has influenced music more than any other genre of music.
That's right, and that's massive. If we can really get our heads around that, that is
huge. And to understand the power of that, you had in the 70s to the 80s, you had people. There was more of a balance, right? So you had some people that would talk on parties and partying, which is fine. Some people talking about the realities of the harsh streets, and then you have some people that talking about consciousness. But there was a balance of all, and there was a focus on talent and lyricism, delivery and performance. Now, from the transition period of the 90s, even though that coincided with the golden era, these major corporations, we got to understand they're interconnected. As far as I know, there's a link between the music industry and the private prison industries?
Well, yeah, there was a alleged letter that was found. If you recall, you may have heard this, viewers. If you want, viewers, listeners, if you want to call in, 07538005634 or 0798385292. If you have knowledge on this, we want to hear from you. I remember it circulating around on social media, I think it was Facebook, about a letter from a ex-Jewish, I think it was, a Jewish music exec who was round the table listening to this whole setup, which they said they were going to actually use hip-hop.
There were 2 lines a while ago you said were L 7 5.
Yes, 2 lines that you can call.
What you got?
07.
Oh, there we go. 0.
That's right. So
up Boss for now.
0753805634. That's 0753805634. Or you can call
0798385292 or text us on 075742s, which is 2222156.
Just getting schooled live on air. That's all good, though.
Yeah, we're consumed by what we're talking about because it's serious.
It's serious.
So when we talk about genocide, this is one aspect of it.
Yeah.
The genocide of the mind and how that happens. That happens in the arts.
That's true.
And the media.
So, yeah, what I wanted to say, just going on from your point that you were making, was about this letter, this so-called meeting that occurred where these execs were actually outlining that they would create this music that was in par and in line with the private prisons industry. So they needed a whole bunch of people to be manipulated by a form of music that would help to spur on a way of a culture, because hip hop is a culture, and that would lead people to actually directly to jail cells. Now, people have debated on this letter whether it's real or not, but it's like the Willie Lynch letter when people have debated whether that's real or not. Real or not, this is exactly what is happening.
Yeah, the evidence is clear, right? And there's a need for us to be imprisoned. When you hear things like in America, there's more of us in prison today than there was enslaved in 1849. And when you hear about there's more African Americans that are in prison today than at the heights of the South African apartheid, where in America there's 15% African Americans, as far as I'm aware, and there's obviously the majority of South Africans are African, right?
Right.
So when you look at the statistics, it's quite horrifying, right? So when it comes to arts, how we link it back to what we was talking about African Liberation Day, how this ties in is that hip-hop will give that consciousness. There are artists that will talk on our link, on who we are, on raising our chakras and the spiritual level, but also on the political level, who we are. You had Public Enemy, Africa Bambaataa, and the Zulu Nation. Like this, the name in itself.
That's right.
Without even going too deep on African Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation, just the name.
That's
so
right.
when you omit those people from the mainstream,
what access do you have to learning about?
What access does our people have to learning about that? And we can only identify ourselves, therefore, with stereotypes that is continually being perpetuated by the music industry and by movies,
and the hip-hop industry, unfortunately, because of what you're talking about, is really detrimental to black women and black girls because of the way that we are viewed through that genre.
Yeah,
we are second-class citizens in that genre. To be a female rapper, unless there are one or two that I can name that are actually respected for their talent alone, like Rhapsody, and who else can we name that's actually based on their talent and not the size of
Lauryn Hill,
anatomy.
Lauryn Hill.
Yes.
And then in the underground you have. Oh wait, we got a caller.
Oh, okay.
Greetings, caller.
Wow, you got a caller.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can just about hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Greetings.
Greetings. The part of the program I caught, I didn't catch all the program, and you got to remind me of the subject matter, but I think it was along the lines of, like, I heard you talking about hip-hop and the influence hip-hop has had on people's minds, but I didn't really catch it. What's the subject matter? Sorry.
No, I mean, initially we just went into hip hop and talking about the arts. We're talking about African Liberation Day initially, and hip hop has come up as an art form that we believe influences our people and takes away instead of enhancing the knowledge of our heritage as African peoples.
Well, to elaborate further on that, it's actually hip hop was created by us, and major labels, major institutions have stolen our art and projected it onto us in ways that is not balanced.
Yeah, I agree with that. But you know what, right? I was born in 1970, and I was born in Hackney Hospital, and I grew up in the East End of London. I spent some time living in New York, and while I was in New York, there was a station called Kiss FM.
Okay.
You've got a station here called Kiss FM, but the original name came from New York. It was a station. At the time they were called breakbeats. It was called breakbeats. It wasn't called hip hop. It's called breakbeats.
Yeah.
So 24/7 it would play breakbeats. Yeah. Now the hip hop music was formed as it was formed as a result of gang violence. In New York at the time, you had a lot of gang fighting, like we've seen here, but worse. A lot of shootings, a lot of stabbings. So hip hop culture and hip hop music was formed to counteract
that.
Sorry?
To counteract gang violence.
No, to rather than fight, stab, and shoot one another, you could dance against one another, break dance, i.e. break dance, or you'd use graffiti as a way of expression, and whose graffiti was the best. Now, I saw some of that culture come in. What I find quite interesting is how people define hip-hop culture now as taking away or influence young people in a manner which is not conducive to development, but that's not really true. Like I say, hip-hop culture was formed to counteract gang violence. Gang violence was around from the 50s. In actual fact, if you look at the establishment of America, you had endemic. Even the fire service and the police service, believe it or not, in New York was started through gangs. So gang violence had been around long before hip-hop music had anything to do with it.
Yeah, I agree with you, sir, actually. Brother, I do agree with you. I think what we're seeing now, though, is a definite shift in what it originally might have been, was created for. That purpose has been shifted. When you look at hip-hop now, you cannot compare it to the times you're talking about, because it is it's in terms of the balance, it's no longer there. You're in the mainstream, you're mainly going to hear a lot of negative versions of hip-hop being out there rather than anything positive.
No, sorry, that's not right. I'll tell you why that's not right. Because, like I said to you, hip-hop was formed after gang violence. It didn't start. There's always been gang violence, and there's always been this. What hip-hop culture is evolved into is a form of expression. And what you find is that the culture represents the voice of the poor. It represents the voice of the downtrodden. So what you're calling negative is actually a form of expression which people do not really want to see. For instance, what you find is that some things which used to carry on in the poor neighborhoods, in the so-called ghetto neighborhoods, was never being publicized outside of those neighborhoods, i.e. prostitution, drug crime, violence, single parents, and all the rest of it was not being published or emphasized by the mainstream. So those people who were subject to those lifestyles now have a voice. So what you're seeing is not what you're referring to as negativity, is actually expression. It's expression. It's the same in reggae music. For a long time, reggae music, especially dancehall music, was not allowed to be played on the radio stations in Jamaica. Now, anybody who knows music will tell you this. It was illegal to play. In actual fact, the radio station didn't support it because, again, it was the voice of the downtrodden. It was the voice of the people who suffered. And it was considered, like you said, negative. But really, it was a form of expression. So, I hear this a lot, not just from yourself, from people much older than you who should know better, that sometimes these forms of expression which we're seeing, we've got to recognize it for what it is. Sometimes they're not pretty and we don't like them, but they do represent a form of expression. Let me give you an example. My brother, we grew up in hip-hop. My brother is one of the best graphic designers in this country. He's won BAFTA awards. And that work came out of graffiti. We grew up in the culture. I had a break dance forum. We worked at London Palladium. We done lots of things. And even at the time, when we used to have our hip-hop records, people didn't want them played in so-called discos, and even at parties, people didn't want to hear it. So,
my brother, I just want to be clear on certain things. I do not disagree that there couldn't be a misunderstanding in terms of young people being allowed to express through art their actual living, like what they're going through. The problem lies in when you have young people who are not even living that life, who feel but they have to, the only way that they can express themselves is through living a life that they're not actually living, because that has been glamorized. And you have to acknowledge that has been the case with the current state of hip-hop today. Women are viewed in a negative and derogative way. And there was a year, 2006, I recall, when there was a specific channel who I later learned is Jewish owned, not even black owned, but they were playing urban and black music, where it was rampant pornography being played. So you had the likes of all these kind of British hip hop stars and American, so Snoop Doggy Dogg and all these people. Instead of, it's not just hip hop for expression, you're actually having women dressed in no clothing.
The thing
and yet what you have as a result is young people watching that and wanting to emulate that and thinking that is the way that they can get respect. So there's a difference. So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. So hip-hop is a form of expression and the life that you're living. I completely agree with that. But what's happened is the industry has taken that and they packaged it and commercialized that. So now everyone, even the ones that are not living a certain type of life, feel that is the culture that they want to belong to, and they express themselves in that way. And what that does is perpetuate a negative way of being. What you're not getting is the balance that used to be there. There used to be a balance. You could get politically...
And there is a balance in the underground. There's a balance in the underground scene, and it's not the artists that are like... We love hip-hop. I listen to hip-hop every single day, but where is Cannabis? Where is Rakim? Where is Big Daddy Kane? Where are the immortal techniques? They're not seen on the music television.
Yeah. I heard the word commercialized, right? If you want to sell anything, if you want to sell any product, it's commercialized. As soon as you put it on a market to sell it, it becomes commercial. It's as simple as that. So therefore, if you do not want to sell it, it's just what you're creating is an art form. So anything you put out in the market is commercialized. So it's not a matter of it's become commercialized. In order for it to sell it, it's got to be commercial. Now, you talk about...
Do you agree with, Iggy Azalea that's out there? Do you agree with the message that she's putting out? Do you agree with artists such as, who's the other female out there? Nicki Minaj. Do you agree with her message that she's putting out there for our young black children, our young black girls? Can you actually watch a video of hers and actually enjoy that and not see that there is a problem with young girls emulating or wanting to emulate what she is rapping about and how she's portraying herself as a black woman? Is there not something that we have to kind of acknowledge here that isn't right? Can we not have more of Rhapsody, another rapper, female rapper, who is arguably a better lyricist than Nicki Minaj, who is very talented. I don't want to take that away from her, but is rapping more conscious stuff. You're not going to see her in the same level of mainstream as you see the likes of Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, so to be
and
clear,
that's my issue. It's not about the fact that,
to be clear, it's not the art form we're talking about, it's the industry.
Listen, I have 3 daughters, okay? I have 3 daughters. My oldest daughter is 26, my youngest one is 14, and I have 2 sons. Now, you ask me a question like that. Now, the point is this is the reality of it. The responsibility is not the television or not the music. The responsibility starts in the home. Now, the reality of it is that you're not going to stop anybody from doing anything they want. I can't stop my children. I can only advise them, and I can only grow them in the best way I know how. But the point is, when they leave my door, the world is their oyster, right? Okay, and that's the reality of it. Now, let's talk about degrading women, right? Degrading women had started hundreds of years before hip-hop music was introduced, and it will go on 100 years after hip-hop music is dead. That is not the issue here, right? You see, the problem we have, I see that we're always looking to pinpoint the real problems we have on whether it be music, whether it be television, whether it be this or that. But what I'm saying is that the responsibility for behaviour and attitudes must start with the home, and it must start with the
I completely agree.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that to an extent.
It is
brother.
about
Do you know
the
what?
home.
Do you know what? But this is the thing. These industries.
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm saying is, the responsibility for your children's behaviour must start at the home, and it must start with the family, both the immediate family and the extended family and the community. This is where the responsibility must start. And I find it very, very worrying, having 5 children, having grown up in East London, having grown up in London through the 70s and the 80s and 90s, with the sort of things I'm hearing now. I'm saying that the responsibility must start at home.
I agree with that, but my point is this: these people, the music industry, the music labels, the owners of those companies have no interest in our music. None. They don't listen to it. They are people that the CEO of Sony might end up in a governmental position in 10 years' time, or might end up in the military defense. They are, or NASA. They study the brain, they study the mind, and they understand how music affects the mind. And by taking control of our art form, when we're talking about hip-hop, we're not talking about the art form that we've created. There's a thriving underground scene, I must emphasize. There's a thriving underground scene full of a wealth of talent of artists that do not get the same funding, the same light. And it's not about that they ain't got the commercial appeal. They're very popular, but there's radio stations and televisions and labels will not support people that promote positive messages.
That's correct.
And a positive message doesn't necessarily have to be things are all great, things are all nice. Reflect the society that you're living. Reflect the life that you're living, yes, but do not glamorize it. There's a danger in that. And these major corporations fund. Sister Stella mentioned Iggy Azalea. Iggy Azalea is an Australian woman who's got an American accent and rapping in ways that is negative to our people, but it's influencing our people because she's a leading light. As much as the home is very important, is the most important, I completely agree with you on that, but at the end of the day, we all have role models, we all have people we look up to, and if the role models are people that are detrimental to us, that we have to analyse that.
Let me show you a reality bigger than the music and bigger than the influence of hip-hop. More pork and red meat kills our people than hip-hop has ever done. Put it that way, right? The mere eating of pork kills our people and has a more detriment on our people's minds and our health than music or any negativity in the music has.
Brother, you are talking to 2 healthy vegans in the building, and you are completely right when you're talking that was just one aspect we're bringing up because it's one of the things in the many line of things that is, I say, is an active force that's trying to work against our progression as a people. One of the many things, and you are completely right. Our diet needs to be looked at as a people, our health, and the fact that we need to see each other as brother and sisters as well needs to be looked at. But one of the aspects we just brought up as a side note in terms of talking about African Liberation Day is just a brief kind of look at the influence of the arts and how it is manipulated and used to work against our people and how we can combat that. So it's about actually just acknowledging that, you know, what you're saying is correct, brother. You know, a lot of what you're saying is correct. And we do not, it's not that we're saying that hip hop is to blame. What we're saying is the people who are actively working against the progression of African peoples are using different mediums and our art form against us. So that's what we have to acknowledge. We have to, you know, acknowledge that fact. So yeah, we're on the same page. Really and truly, we're on the same page, brother.
All I'm trying to say is this. I hear this a lot. I hear the attack on all sorts of genres of music and the attack on ourselves. The reality of it is that if we are to defend ourselves, we're not going to defend ourselves by attacking our art forms or whatever, no matter whether we like them or not, whether they're pleasing to us or not. The defense must be, I'm going to say this again, that the focus must be, the biggest form of defense we have is the stabilization and the unification of the family. Now, once you stabilize and unify the family, once the family is unified and it's stable, no attack can penetrate. No attack can penetrate. And that's it. So while we're looking at these smoke screens being created deliberately, and while our attention is focused on things that are not going to make no difference, are going to be going on in 100 years' time and 100 years previous, the reality of our predicament is that we have to strengthen the family. We have to strengthen the relationships between the man and the woman, between the man and the children and the woman and the children, and between each other as men and as women and as a community. And once we can do that, that's the problem. That's the issue. Once we can do that, then all our problems will be solved.
And
we have our defense.
And the solution to that, I believe, is by reclaiming our diet, our art forms, our media, our education, and our economics. I believe all is important, all important factors in reclaiming, in building that strong bond amongst each other in the household, and then as a community. The household is a microcosm of the community in itself. So I agree, but I believe that we have to analyse the things that are attacking us, because we are being attacked. We're not free.
Yeah, look. You know what? Everything you said there, I'm on the same page. I'm just making an interjection and just to keep the focus, because sometimes not just it's a fantastic program and it's fantastic work you're both doing there, but I hear this argument not just outside a great deal, and the point I've reached in my life, and I'm telling you this now, is that we have to start focusing on our own development and stop being diverted by everything else which we feel is the problem. And really, the problem is the lack of unification. The problem is the lack of unity. Look, if we unite, right, if we put our differences aside, it doesn't matter what anybody does outside there. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
That's right.
Because the reality of it is that at the time we're living in now, let's talk about here and now. The biggest problem we've got is ourselves. I'm sorry to say that. It's ourselves. And once we can put our differences aside, right, and start recognizing that we have a bigger problem, there's no enmity out here can deter us, whether it be music, television, or whatever propaganda machine they want to bring, whatever social construct or whatever. It can't penetrate. But the problem we have right now is that we will not allow our ego, we will not allow our differences to be put aside, so we can recognize the bigger problem and unite and go forward.
Big up.
True talk.
Yes, I agree with that.
What's your name, brother, so the people can know?
My name is Paul. You're doing very good. You're doing some excellent work, and it's just something I just needed to say, because I hear this argument a lot, but sometimes we get diverted. And that's all I'm saying. Some of these things, and it's a deliberate tactic. It's a deliberate. It's a form of reverse engineering. It's like reverse psychology being used, and academics are sitting down and writing these things and putting these propaganda on the net, on the same YouTube and all these rest of it. They're actually strategically sitting down and writing and planning these things, and people are getting drawn in, which I would expect, because they're using some very clever people to put these things together. What I'm saying is, how we can combat it, the solution lies with us. The solution doesn't not lie with anything else than the individual. The individual's ability to recognize that his strength comes from unification.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, my brother. Thanks for your call so much. We really appreciate your words and your insight,
and
your
the raising
contribution.
of the discussion as well.
It's a good work up.
Yeah, bless up, Paul.
All right, so so we're just gonna play some music now.
Yeah, but some hip hop.
Some conscious hip hop. And just take a quick break.
And then after that, we'll come back with some talk on Shield. Blessings.
Okay, we got a caller on the line.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greetings.
Yeah, good afternoon. Greetings.
Good afternoon, sir. What's your name?
Michael.
Greetings, Michael.
Yeah. I accept. I think I understand what the previous gentleman, was saying. Most of what he's saying is true, because the thing is that no matter what we do, propaganda is always going to be there. If we focus more on how we can actually, as you were saying, rescue our finances, like say our banking system, our financial institution, and stuff like that, and actually build ourselves like what most of these Asian countries have done. I mean, if you look at places like, say, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, they were just even poorer than most African countries only 30, 40 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
China.
Yeah. And they've focused on their development now, that no matter what negativity is out there being thrown at them, they've come together and formed a very, fierce base. Just like China. America's propaganda and all that, China is still moving on by itself. You get me? So if we could focus more on our own
economics,
financial institutions, because right now we've got billionaires all over Africa. We've got very rich black people in America and the Caribbean as well. But how can all these entities come together and create jobs within our societies?
That's right. Do you think they have enough awareness of something called sort of corporate responsibility? Do you think they care? These billionaires that we talk about, we read about them all the time.
That's the problem. Even within the mainstream don't really care about even, let's say, okay, let's put it this way. White billionaires don't care about poor white people.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, what each entity needs to do their bit. Like those drumming now, like, say, Galaxy Radio and all the media need to do their part. And also all those that are out there with the finances, we need to find a way to get them to do their part. And all the NGOs, black NGOs need to also, everybody needs to do their bit. And then, like through education and everything, I think if it all comes together, like what India has done, what China has done, and what all other communities are doing, then we might be able to see some progress.
I think I believe the problem is, my brother, I hear you, but I believe the problem is that our focus is on money rather than on resources and land and ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those billionaires are, not seeing the actual land that they're from as the actual, true show of power and wealth.
What happened to our people? I mean, you're talking about hundreds of years of colonialism. I mean, Africa has been colonized for what? A very long time. Like, say, my mother is an Ashanti woman, and my dad is a Yoruba man.
Big up.
Sorry?
Big up.
Yeah. My dad is Yoruba, and my mom's Ashanti. Yeah. And these two tribal places have got so many resources and so many things, but I can't actually see any cohesion or any business deals between Nigeria and Ghana. I mean, it's easy for Nigerians to do business in Britain than to do across borders. Dangote, one of these rich Nigerian guys was saying that he's trying to get sugar to Ghana, but the Benin government is trying to stop him from doing that. And all he's trying to do is create jobs, more jobs for African people, but governments who have been put there by the colonial powers
exactly
from doing that. You get me?
So there lies the problem, I believe.
Yeah.
You see, the illusion of independence makes us relax and not see who is the cause of our problems. Yeah. If they say you're independent, but their corporations remain, influencing governmental decisions, who's really in control? Really and truly, my Ashanti forefathers or my Yoruba forefathers didn't create Ghana and Nigeria. Exactly.
People who created Ghana and Nigeria.
That's right. So
their governors and put in precedents to carry on their own, development.
Imperialism.
So if we try to do anything to help our people in other countries, they get these institutions that they've put there to stop them or to stop us from progressing. So right now, Dangote doesn't know what he can't actually do this business because someone is stopping him from helping his brothers to, especially create jobs. So, I mean, you're doing a very good job. You're enlightening all of us. And the previous caller, I think what he's saying is very true, that a lot of things we need to ride above certain things. I mean, especially with hip-hop. I used to listen to hip-hop a lot, but right now I choose which channel on to listen to which type of music. Especially when my children are there, because I find it difficult for them to be sitting there listening to certain things, and I actually go on certain radio stations to listen to conscious rap and stuff like that, so it's been diluted, but we need to move above that and then focus on how we can actually even wrestle certain industries from the...
Yes, my brother, I hear you, I hear what you're saying. I think it's just something that we we just wanted to touch on as hip hop fans, but there are loads of factors that are important in this whole struggle for Africa's liberation. And I think just coming into my head at this moment is about African Liberation Day itself being that that kind of event that could help us, all these different nations, to really kind of connect. So on that level, that could be something that would help us to be thinking back to our history and Kwame Nkrumah and all of those kind of things, and, get that kind of spirit and that energy.
That self-identity is what we're basically talking about. Once we really understand who we are and what is owed to us, then as en masse, once we really understand who we are en masse, and we can start reclaiming things. Africa, from my point of view, does not need money. It's got all the resources it has. Once they understand that, once we understand that, then no deal could be had. Gaddafi with his gold dinar, that suggestion there, if we're dealing with our own currency, so if Nigeria and Ghana say, we're going to deal with our own currency, the major corporations out there cannot influence it or cannot cannot interrupt because they haven't got the trading material.
Yeah. Can I touch on that, please?
Yes, sure.
The last OAU meeting that Gaddafi went to, he suggested that we should start using gold, because there's no point using dollar where you sell your resources with dollar and then they sell it back to you in dollar, and that means you the value is down and
the value is lost. Yes.
You do. And once he suggested that at the last OAU meeting, that's when the Arab Spring started. And what happened? He was killed. Okay, fair enough, he's gone. But at least the good thing now is that he's planted the seeds in so many people's head. What we need to do is find a way to implement what he did. Because when he took over Libya in these, I don't know whether it's 60s or 70s,
yes,
Libya was one of the poorest countries in Africa,
right,
in the world. But by the time they assassinated him, I use the word assassinated because he was deliberately killed.
Definitely.
Africa, his country was the richest country per capita, per head in the whole of Africa.
That's right.
Because of free systems that, if we Google it, the free systems that he implemented. You get me?
The schooling system, access to education. I think he was helping
families
with funds
Thank
and
you
all
very
of this.
much.
Yes, thank you for your contribution, brother.
Thank you, brother. Yes, that was really great call. So it relates back to African Liberation Day and what it really means to have people to unite on that one occasion, the 25th of May, and even just grow some understanding or even overstanding of what that day actually means and what it signifies. It's a symbol, isn't it, of unity in African and for African and their diaspora.
Gaining self-identity, yes.
Yeah.
And what is owed to us as well.
That's right, reclaiming
what is owed to us.
Yes, so what we want to do now is
ease into a track.
That's right.
So, yeah, back into
Trying to save
Loving that track, Free Minds.
Yeah, big
Feeling
tune.
the vibes.
Big tune. So, greetings and welcome back
Greetings, everyone.
to the Stella
And Nat Nye.
Ride Home Show.
Yes, on Galaxyafiwe, the only de-brainwashing station.
On 102.5 FM.
Yes, when we're here, we're connecting with you. Hopefully, we're connecting with all of you through the airwaves on several different subjects. We want to raise a very important subject concerning Operation Shield.
Operation Shield. Yeah, we went to a public meeting the other day where the police and I guess some councilmen from Lambeth did a little presentation or consultation to the general public to tell us about a plan that they are enforcing upon us called Shield.
Yes, so now we got this sort of urgent call to come to this meeting. We've got a caller on the line. Let's see who it is.
Can I be heard?
Greetings.
Greetings, it's Brother Twilight.
Okay, my name is Langa.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, brother.
Yes, I was listening to your show. It's quite an interesting idea that you people are coming up with, because I've always been, worried about Africa not being online, because Africa is not online at all.
What do you mean
with
by
our
online?
voyage to Motherland?
Sorry?
Are you referring to our voyage to Motherland?
Yes, because you mentioned that you're going to be traveling to Africa and trying to bring about the positive side of Africa that people don't get to see, which is what I found very interesting and exciting, because that's what, the reason for me to call is maybe we could, exchange contacts and then expand on that, because that's my vision as well to as far as Africa is concerned. We have Africans here in the diaspora, but they are not very actively involved with locals. That's one thing I find disturbing. So you would find that if maybe we could spark some light somewhere to try to change that in Europe and also in Africa, to try to create networks with people in Africa, to try to get information about Africa online. Like, for example, as it is right now, I know of an old man in South Africa, there in KwaZulu-Natal, who has history. I fear that if he dies, the knowledge that he has is not going to be out there for people to know.
Yeah, that's a problem. And that's what we want to have on record. Those kind of stories, those kind of knowledge, we want to have on record, on film, on camera, and on written form.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot of things really I would like to talk about, but it will steal your time, so I'm not going to go into that. But I would like to get, maybe I didn't quite get the address. You say www.voyage.
Okay, so if you're interested in our voyage to Motherland, it's www.voyagetomotherland.wix wix.com
Voyage to Motherland
.wix .com.
The line is very bad,
You can
If you give us your details, what we'll do is we'll send you. If you can text us your details, what we'll do is we can give you all the information. But it's www.voyagetomotherland.wix.com/voyage.
Or you can find us on Facebook. My name is Nathaniel Nye, NATHANIEL space NYE.
I'm not on Facebook. I will try to look at the website. Thank you.
Okay, text in. We can contact you that way.
Okay then.
Yeah, bless.
Bless up. So yes, so thank you for that call. But we wanted to just highlight some issues regarding Project Shield. It's very important that you listen in on this. For those of you, well, for all of us, this is very important information. So Project Shield, we were called to a public meeting last Friday. We got the call and we went up there, and we sat down in this public meeting. In attendance, we had, members of Nation of Islam. We had all the representatives that represent our black community, and we had the police officers in Lambeth who are, I think they're part. Well, yes, they are part of the Operation Shield, and they were explaining, or like you said, consulting the members of the public about this new operation that they're putting forward.
Right, we have another caller come through. Hello?
Hello there, how are you doing?
Greetings, blessed, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I love the young lady, the Nigerian lady. What's your name anyway?
What's her name?
My name is Stella.
Sorry, Stella.
Yes, Stella, as in...
Nice to speak to you, Stella.
Sorry again, say again. It's a really bad line.
No, I said nice to speak to you.
Oh, lovely to speak to you too, brother.
Yeah. I would just say the elaborate to the 2-3 callers ago. Yeah, well, he was right. The guy Michael who phoned up as regarding Dangote. You see, Dangote was the richest, the so-called the richest black man in the world. You see, but he does a lot of charitable work for our community. I mean, not just over here in Nigeria, but over here as well. And he's got a lot of business interests where he has the cloud to employ a lot of black people. So
okay.
And you have Alakija as well, Falarisho Alakija, the so-called richest black woman. She also does philanthropist work for a lot of our community. But you see, one thing I want to emphasize to you, you see London, yeah? London is a city about different communities, different, like the Russian oligarchy, the Nigerian community, the Hong Kong, the Chinese. Because the English people in London don't really own anything, because most of the big businesses, they've sold it up to companies abroad. You notice that?
Right.
I mean, look, for example, look at Jaguar and Land Rover. That's owned by an Indian, a man known as Ratan Tata, yeah? That's owned by an Indian man. So, I mean, I mentioned Dangote to you. I mean, he's just put in a bid for Arsenal Football Club. And look how big Arsenal Football institution, yeah? And at the moment, he's having problem negotiating with an American guy by the name of Stan Kroenke, because he's the majority shareholder at Arsenal. But I think, within a few months, I think he can complete the deal. So this goes someone's property portfolio,
Yes.
So, I mean, if you look at Atlanta in America, even the Africans, especially the Nigerian community, own practically all the business there. If you notice that, Stella. In the Nigerian community, and especially in Atlanta, that I just mentioned, do exceptionally well.
Yeah. Okay. I can get down with that. That's true.
I would encourage our people to do is to try to send money back to Africa. I mean, we're doing a lot of money sent back to Nigeria and Ghana, especially Nigeria. So much billions and billions of pounds, which is serious money.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I can agree with that. Sorry, brother, what's your name?
Ade.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a lot to. I mean, that does happen with Western Trade Union. There's a lot of people doing that, but I guess what we're trying to talk about is, on a whole, as the whole continent, what it is in celebrating African Liberation Day that can connect everyone.
Yeah. I mean, the young fellow they mentioned about early rap before. I mean, you have people like Curtis Blow, you have the Houdini, you have the Soul Sonic Fort, you have Force MD. I mean, this a proper, proper rap, that don't exemplify. As you say, I agree with you about the violence which they portray today. The type of rap they portray is different from what it was 30 years ago. And I forgot the Sugar Hill Gang as well,
Yeah.
And you have Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think comparison to what we're getting today. You mentioned the Ninja, what's her name? Ninja, whatever her name. I think she's a terrible role model.
Yeah, that's right. It is, and you have to acknowledge that, isn't it? As someone who's a hip hop fan and who studies hip hop, you have to acknowledge what's actually happening today.
I never used to like Beyonce, but I actually met her and Jay-Z in Lagos about 6-7 years ago. They came to Lagos on a visit, so I had my change of opinion about her, because the both of them do charitable work. But the other lady, I'm not really, I don't think she's a very, very, very good role model.
All right, my brother. Thank you so much for your call, and I hope you do tune in next week and call again. We'd love to hear from you again, but we just got to stick to our schedule. I'm afraid to cut you short on there, but interesting point about Beyonce and Jay-Z. I definitely want to hear more on that. So if you can call in again, that would be really great next week. Thank you so much, brother Ade. Okay, so have we got another call on the line?
We're going to call in Twilight Bay.
Okay, you're calling him. Okay, so while you're doing that and setting that all up, I'll just set up a brief background to why we're touching on this subject, because it's very fresh. It's actually happening currently now. And it's very important that as a community, these are one of the things we are tackling is, the labeling of our young black men and women, our young black children, the labeling of them as gang members and what that actually does to alienate and marginalize these young people. Working in the education system, or having come from working in the education system, the institutionalized education system, I've seen firsthand how young people do feel marginalized and almost attacked. So we've got Twilight Bray on the line.
Greetings, Twilight.
Yes, greetings.
Greetings.
Yes, finally got through to you, or finally made the connection.
Okay.
Yeah,
good to hear from you.
Yeah, blessings, man. We were talking about Shield.
Yes.
And a new initiative that has been brought through to basically, how we see it, attack our young. And we wanted to know if you could elaborate for the people, because I know you're in a rush.
Okay, well, think about the root causes of crime. When you look at any Western society and you look at what the root causes of crime are, the root causes of crime are usually bad.
Hello.
Twilight?
So the line seems to be a bit faulty.
How does law enforcement address those issues? And the truth of the matter is, law enforcement can address those issues. They don't have the capacity for that. They're not trained for that. So if the mayor's office is actually truthfully trying to find a way to end violence or prevent violence in the black community, he's not addressing the root causes. And when you look at this program and the way that it's structured, it also leaves room for people to be subjected to stereotyping, as well as being subjected to evidence that may not be factually based, because the definition of an associate is not really clear. And in all of the meetings that I've gone to where they've talked about this, I have not seen clear evidence of what determines what an associate is. And when asked the question, they can't give an answer. And the meeting that took place in Brixton regarding the Operation Show, they were asked clearly, what is does it involve joint enterprise? And they routinely said that, this is not about joint enterprise. This is not about joint enterprise. But when pressed on the question of are they sure that joint enterprise will not be utilized in the implementation of Operation Shield, the police officer had to basically say that would be down to the prosecution service. So the police couldn't even say that joint enterprise was not a part of this process. And when you think about it, they say that Operation Shield is a group violence intervention program. Group violence. Usually when violence takes place, it involves anywhere between two to possibly more people. But when you get down to looking at who actually might have stabbed someone or shot someone, the numbers get very, very small.
Right.
So how is it that it does not involve joint enterprise if you're looking at a group? And if there are people in the group who might have been present, might have seen what was taking place, and could not intervene, and it could not prevent it, didn't take part in it, what protections do they have that they would not be prosecuted because they were present, because it was their cousin, because this is their friend that they've been knowing since they was in primary school? How are they guaranteed not to be prosecuted? And these are the things that people got to be asking about Operation Shield. First off, it does not address the root causes of the violence, but yet they've invested all of this money in it.
How much money?
Not only that, 200,000 is what's been invested so far.
Wow.
This program that they're calling Operation Shield is not new to London. It was also something that was deployed under the Labour government when Labour was in power. So it's nothing new. Yes, it's not a new concept, and it's not a new way of doing things. It's a continuation of a model that was developed in the United States by people involved in a university that basically has nothing that basically does nothing but serve law enforcement. And this university is built on basically educating police officers, chief constables, and people like that who come in to enforce laws. And if you're involved in law enforcement, what aspect of community development, what aspect of cultural development, what aspect of economic development will you cover on any law enforcement course?
Right.
You don't, because it's not the job of a police officer. So I can't see how the wasting of taxpayers' money in this way is going to serve our community in any kind of way that is beneficial. So I would warn against anybody being involved in it, and the way that they get it endorsed by the community is by having a few organizations that agree to be a part of it and support it.
Right. So these organizations need to be aware of the true impact this has in terms of their involvement in it and their willingness to comply with this.
Well, this is how they play it out. Yeah, because I believe that a lot of practitioners in the community don't have a clue what the long-term political implications of this thing is.
Right.
Now, when they talk about collective enforcement, basically what they're saying is that basically you get housing, you get education, welfare, you get everybody that you can involved in a gang task force. And if someone is classified as a gang member, your name goes on a database called the Matrix. On the Matrix,
wow.
From your rank from number one suspect up to suspect number 3,000. In fact, they don't even call them suspects; they call them nominals.
Wow.
And I know from doing the work in the field that there are people's names who are on that database that need to come off that hadn't been involved in any criminal activity for 3 or more years, and the criminal activity prior to that was nothing more than them possibly being involved in antisocial behavior on their housing estate. So what people got to understand is that your name can go on that database, and once your name is on the database, you got more people watching you and paying attention to every single thing that you do than you can imagine. And the reality is, if you're no longer involved in crime, you shouldn't be subjected to such
surveillance.
Surveillance. And you know, the old thing about civil liberties is: this a police state or are people free?
Well, that.
As far as I'm concerned,
I was going to ask the question, Brother Twilight, which was: do you think that these legislations that are being passed through, or these pilot schemes that are being pushed through, is influenced by the private industrial prison complex?
Well, see, these are the kind of things that practitioners have to think about. What are the long-term implications of some of these programs and these pilot programs, and not just pilot programs, but even new legislation that's being implemented in the UK, and what can it mean for the community long-term? So, one thing we do know is that prisons are being privatized in the UK. Another thing that we know is that that's not anything new. It goes all the way back to Margaret Thatcher's administration. The other thing, though, is that now probation has been privatized. Now, when I say probation has been privatized, probation has been broken up into 2 parts. One part is called the National Probation Service. The National Probation Service, they basically are civil servants in the capacity of probation officers who have to respond to whoever the Minister for Justice is, who's been elected and appointed that position in the cabinet of whoever the Prime Minister is. So basically, you put that under the control of someone who has no experience in law enforcement, and not even law enforcement, but in rehabilitation. Yeah, you put that in the power of someone who has no experience in rehabilitation. They're now responsible for determining what happens with people who are classed as high risk probationers and people on parole. Now, the other half of probation is now been broken, that's been put up to be privatized or have private businesses leading them. That part of probation is called the CRCs. And CRC is an acronym that stands for Community Rehabilitation Companies.
Right.
Now, that's basically another arm of probation. But what they do is they deal with the medium to low risk offenders. And now that's where you got private companies involved. You got companies involved like MTC Novo. You got companies involved like Servo. You got, numerous different organizations that are private sector organizations who make millions off these kinds of contracts. And when they go into business with the government, they tend to have contracts that make sure that they're going to make a profit on what it is that they're doing.
Yes.
They're involved in private business, and in the Western world, private business means profit, and profit means whatever it takes to make money.
Right.
So when you look at our community is politically and economically vulnerable. We're not equipped or competent enough to be able to protect ourselves from these types of social policies.
Right.
And because of that, you basically are exploiting the most vulnerable people in this society. It's nothing more than exploitation. But if people are not willing to take responsibility in our communities for changing the dynamics of how those kind of things affect us, then we're just opening ourselves up to constantly be exposed to that level of abuse. I have been campaigning in the States as well as in the UK and been an activist to get more and more people in the community, practitioners and professionals, in spite of what agencies they work for, to remember that when you implement these kind of strategies and you implement these kind of policies, you're not only going after the one individual who may have committed a crime or may not have committed a crime, because some of this stuff is just based on assumptions. I've said in MAPA meetings, and I don't know if people know what MAPA means, but MAPA means multi-agency public protection arrangement.
Wow.
In those meetings, there's a lot of subjective information that is shared by police, people involved in education, people involved in housing. And it's subjective information. It's not facts-based. And based on subjective information, people have plans that have been put together by individuals in these agencies to basically manage and control every aspect of their lives. And I believe that that's unfair. Because sometimes people are subjected to a MAPA and they don't even know that they're on MAPA. So when you don't even know you're on MAPA, and MAPA in a situation that I'm aware of, MAPA is telling your, for instance, your partner that you're not allowed to see your children because you're under investigation or the police think you were involved in something that they have no evidence to prove. And they tell your partner not to let you come around because if you do, that means it's a safeguarding issue. Now she has to say to you, you can't come to the house. You can't be around the kids. And when she's telling you this, she don't have no evidence because no evidence has been provided to prove that you've done anything that makes you unsafe to be around your own child.
Wow. Because
of the pressure from social services, she would deny you access to the child. And if they don't, if she doesn't abide by the rules, or by the sanctions, or by what it is that she's been instructed to do, she then finds herself in. That's breaking up black families.
That's what I was going to say. That ties into breaking up the black families.
Yes, and so that brings the whole black family under state control and state monitoring.
Right.
When we look at us being overrepresented in the prison system, this should be an alarming situation for anyone.
Right.
It should be an alarming situation for anybody that becomes aware of it. And as a community, we should be extremely outraged and expressing our outrage in a very, very direct way in the communities in which we live. We want services that meet our needs. We want to address the underlying causes of crime and violence. We want services that are culturally relevant and culturally competent in dealing with our young people. We don't want services that are just basically preaching to us and demanding of us things that are unrealistic, unsustainable, and does not produce.
Brother Twilight, if I'm as a listener and I want to help, I want to get involved, what advice will you give people like that who really want to try and get involved in this and try and help make the situation better for us?
To put the pressure on.
Okay, well, one of the things people can do is that there's work that's being done in different parts of the country and in different parts of London. There are organizations, even the work that I'm doing, where we're working with people to address these issues. We set up a think tank, and we have a website where we're getting people to organize around tackling these kinds of issues. We pull together a movement where we bring in people from the together and educating them and making them aware of what these things are and how will it adversely affect the community. And we're asking the people come from street culture to stand up with the rest of their community and push against these things.
Right.
The main way we can keep the police from mistreating us and abusing us, and the policymakers from exploiting us, is that we have to defund them. And the way you defund them is you as a community have to take responsibility for dealing with issues that generate crime and violence in your own community. And when there is no crime and violence, then what are you going to do? How are you going to justify the salaries? How are you going to justify all of that big money being spent for things that you are trying to make?
Yes.
Right. So what was the website called, Brother Twilight? Brother Twilight?
I think Brother Twilight we might have lost him on the line, unfortunately. But I can get that information up in terms of the website that you can go on. Brother Twilight has been doing this for many, many years in the UK.
And previously in America.
Previously in America. And as you've heard, he really knows his stuff in terms of when we're dealing with the way our black communities are affected by law enforcement and the legislations that they bring about to try and make us the new slaves. Well, that is what I took from that call in terms of how they really are breaking up black families, how they are using us for a new prison industry. So, as in layman's terms, let's put it in layman's terms, you're investing in prisons. What is the need for investment in prisons? That needs, surely you need to make money from your investment. You need to see a return. So if you no longer have any prisoners going in, then you're not going to see a return, are you? That means you've got to keep perpetuating the situations for people to have to commit crimes and break laws. That's why we're seeing such abject misery and austerity. Everyone keeps hearing all these words.
Yeah, it's to put the pressure on.
To put the pressure on and light that gas underneath us.
The private prison industrial complex is serious. When these companies or corporations come in, multinational corporations actually, that come in and do public services, they get a lot of money, governmental contracts, public money. G4S last year got a pre-tax profit of 148 million. So if your pay comes from people being imprisoned, comes from essentially people doing crime, you're going to do what you can. And this ties into what we were saying earlier about the music, about the other aspects, the economic deprivation, the what Brother Twilight was saying about, if we were a stronger community, we wouldn't be so vulnerable to these actions that will make these corporations rich. And if there is no crime, then there is no justification for the money that they might get.
That's right. So we, as a community, have to be aware. He mentioned practitioners. I think we've got him on the line again. He mentioned the practitioners. So these are people that are reformed, people that have, come through the prison system, and they reformed, and they go out and they actually educate the young people. Yes. So I mean, we got cut off. You were explaining about the actual ways that people could get to help out, and we wanted to put your website up. If you could let the people know.
And just before I get that web address, I want to give a couple other points real quick about
that's cool. Yep.
Operation Shield and other programs like it. First of all, it's a data-driven program or initiative. And when I say data-driven, I mean that they have to get intelligence. They have to get as much information on the communities, the individuals and families that they consider to be people that they want to look at and want to monitor. And the only way that they can get that kind of information is that they have to blur the lines between community practitioners and being practitioners that work for the community, or intelligence officers gathering information for law enforcement. So people got to really say to practitioners in the community that we need them to serve us, not be monitoring us. And we're not saying to them that they gotta negate their responsibility of making sure that they're not colluding with criminals and things like that, because that's not what community practitioners do. But there should be a clear line of demarcation, a clear line between what community work is and what law enforcement work is. And that doesn't exist at the moment from what I've seen. The other thing about it is that when you look at it, when they talk about collective enforcement, people can be evicted from their homes for the act of one person. So if you're living in social housing, you could be evicted from your home for something that one person did, and they can have been up to 30 miles away from where you live when they did it. And you didn't even know that they did it, but your whole family can lose your social housing as a result of that. And then the way that affects people is you got some parents who are not allowing their young adult children to return home, and basically not allowing them to return home out of fear that they can't have them in the house for the rest of their life.
Okay.
Yeah, brother Twilight.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to cut you. We're running late on our show now, so yeah, if you could.
People want to get involved. We're going to be launching a website soon. It'll be launched in the next couple of days. Go to the website.
Yep. Okay. It seems to cut out again. So sorry. So yes, we will let you know on how to get involved. We'll be sure to keep you posted on all the kind of activities that you can do to help in terms of Project Shield. Just want to sort of round up the show by thanking Galaxyafiwe for the time, and give thanks for all the listeners out there. We'll see you again next week, 4 till 6. We'll be talking on more issues that affect our communities, giving our opinions, and we love to hear from you, so keep calling in. Love and respect to you all, love and light, and stay blessed, everyone.